Hope there's Ben.
Ben.
All right, roll live.
Hi.
Hi, folks. Scott DeWitt here with Cindy Self at Ohio State, and we have other members of our teaching staff around the area of Columbus, Ohio, and slightly beyond. And our first order of business is to apologize for getting such a late start. We ran into some technical difficulties, which often will happen when you're dealing with technology that is trying to bring in so many people from so many different places. But it seems that we are on air, and we are here to talk a little. Oh, so I'm disappearing off the camera already. We are here to talk a little bit about rhetorical composing and to introduce ourselves so that you can see who these people are who are teaching the class. So I'll let some people introduce themselves. Like I said, I'm Scott DeWitt, one of the instructors.
And I'm Cynthia Self, another of the rhetorical composing MOOC instructors. I often face technology challenges, but I try and stay calm in the face of them and have a good sense of humor. I don't always succeed.
I'm Susan Delagrange, a third member of the original MOOC group. I just let technical difficulties wash off my back. I'm used to them. The more cutting edge the technology is that we use, the more likely we'll have difficulty with it, and isn't that fun to try to figure it out?
And it's kind of a necessary and fun evil, too. Necessary because we're spread out over several different campuses. I, by the way, am Ben McCorkle. I'm on the Marion campus. Susan's on the Mansfield campus. Everyone else is in and around Columbus. So without this technology, our ability to coordinate, I think, would be a little compromised. And plus, that's what a MOOC is about. It's about leveraging these technologies to kind of interact with people on a scale and a degree to which we're otherwise not able to.
And Mike, are you back there?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Mike Lancato. I can't use the computer over there, so we'll get feedback if I turn on the sound, turn on my mic, so I will introduce myself here. I am a first-year PhD student here at Ohio State University at the Columbus campus, and I am really excited to be a part of this MOOC team.
And that leaves Caitlin.
Yeah, I'm Caitlin Clinton. I am a graduate assistant, part of rhetorical composing. When technological problems happen, it's my job to solve them, hopefully.
We're happy to have all the MOOC participants be able to access this particular conversation, and we thought we'd try and focus on some questions that we've seen in the discussion fora that have to do with terminology and also have to do with the operation of the MOOC. So maybe I'll start with a question that I read, which was, what is a literacy narrative, and what does it have to do with writing for a cause? What is a relationship between who am I as a writer with a cause and telling an autobiographical narrative? So let's start with the term literacy narrative. This is simply an autobiographical story based on your own personal experience in life. It can be about an experience when you were younger and writing helped you accomplish a goal or helped you contribute to a cause that you believed in, or it could be a narrative about something that you did later in life, like yesterday, for example. We'd like you to try and identify a story that has to do with writing for a particular cause, but it's a personal story about when you tried to write for a particular cause, or when you succeeded in writing for a particular cause, a newspaper article or editorial, for example, or even a piece, a speech for school that helped you accomplish something in your school classroom. So we'd like you to try and bring together those two concepts, autobiographical narrative, which is a story about yourself and your own personal experience, but try and choose a narrative to tell that illustrates who you are as a writer with a goal in mind or a cause in mind.
And I think one of the questions that I was seeing repeatedly in some of the discussion forums is that, does the cause have to be a big social cause? I mean, I think that that was making some people very, very nervous, because they were saying, you know, do you mean like I'm writing for, you know, a big political movement, or and I think that these can be causes that are very small and affect small communities, but are still very, very powerful, no matter how many people they reach. I think one of the examples that I gave is that, so here's something that you get to learn about one of your instructors here. So I am a ukulele enthusiast, and there's a lot of my life outside of academia that surrounds this funny little instrument. And I have found that I'm doing a lot of writing about the ukulele, not just about my appreciation of this instrument, but that I'm teaching classes to adults in Columbus, most of whom are trying to find a way of bringing music back into their lives. They love music, but they have lost sight of making music. They used to maybe do it when they were younger, or maybe it's something they always wanted to do and they didn't have this opportunity to do this. And they talk about how important this has become to them, that the idea that they've actually been able to come together with other people and make music and think about music and think about the creative force behind these meetings where we all come together. And so it's not just about that as a cause, it's about how much writing I'm doing about this. I spend an immense amount of time on social media now talking about this group and talking to other groups about the power behind making music. And I think that if I were going to do this assignment, I could actually focus on that. My work with the ukulele, I mean, maybe it's changing little corners of the world, and I think that there are people who really appreciate that, but it's actually a very small cause. It's something very, very small in my life. The community it's affecting is very small, but I think I could spend a significant amount of time writing about that particular issue.
One of the participants in the MOOC said that she didn't have a cause to write about, that she was writing so she could find out who she was. And it seems to me that that is a cause. Finding out who you are, determining your identity as a writer, is a cause in itself. And you are both the writer about this narrative, and also you're the audience for the narrative, because you want to know who you are when you write. I think that would be a terrific piece to write. Why are you writing? To find out who you are, to seek your own identity.
Sorry to interrupt real fast, but I think there's a problem with the video. We're stuck on chat right now. So
how do we do chat? Let's see. Do we go to chat?
But we're still live, I think.
we are still live, so everyone can hear you, but we're all going to see chat space.
Where is the chat?
Chad, can you hear us?
Chad's sound isn't working, he said in the chat.
Okay.
But I don't see Chad presented. I see you guys.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay.
But we do need the YouTube link for this if we want people to see it live right now. Right now we're just talking to ourselves.
Okay.
Well, I'll say hi to Chad. Hello, Chad. I'm glad you're here.
I don't think Chad's hearing us, so.
Oh, well.
Does anybody else want to tackle that question about this joining of being a writer and the cause that you might write about, and how to think about that?
Yeah, I think I could speak to that kind of generally. When we were designing this curriculum for the MOOC, I think we intentionally started with this assignment because it allows you to investigate the issue of the social cause from the personal and your own personal sense of investment in that cause. And from there, you grow out and you extend. And the idea of creating a sense of identification with others, I think necessarily starts with that kind of that inward looking, that investigation about what it is that drives you towards a particular cause or in support of a particular cause. And then from there, you try to leverage that information or that knowledge or that self-awareness into broader kinds of workings with language and with imagery and other things, so that you can kind of capture the imagination and the hearts and the minds of a broader public.
It's always easiest, isn't it, to start with what you know best, and what you know best is your own writing and your own self.
Anybody else want to jump in on that?
I picked Susan. Susan, you're muted.
There you go.
Yes, I think the rest of you have already spoken well to the issue, but I want to second what Scott mentioned about choosing smaller issues. I know that several of the assignments that I do in my own teaching, and bits and pieces of those, of course, will show up in the MOOC, show that people can get really passionate about something that specifically involves them. You know, the closing of the dog park, the raises in utility rates, you know, whatever the specific cause is, to investigate it and move into it and create a real voice for yourself is a magical thing, to have this means of expression that moves out into the world and can do real work. The end. Another thing that I noticed, though, on the I was reading all of the responses to the welcome message, and these people weren't asking this as a question so much as worrying about whether they were ready for this class, and I think that that's a really good question at the beginning of any class. But it wasn't so much that worry as the sense of community that seemed to emerge from people asking that question and then responding to one another with encouragement and enthusiasm and grace, which will stand you all in good stead as we move forward in the course. Because the whole principle here is that teachers are learners and learners are teachers, and everybody will work together in order to make not only those people whose writing you respond to better at writing, but make yourself a better writer too.
I think it would be impossible to predict whether every single participant in this MOOC is ready for this particular course or should be enrolled in this particular course from our perspective. The best person to tell you whether you should be enrolled in this particular class is you. And the only way you can figure that particular question out is to give it a try, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, and maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks. There we go. So give it a week or give it 2 weeks and see if you can find within the MOOC a community of learners to whom you relate. If you can do that, you're going to be fine, because you'll be sharing and learning and teaching those particular people as well. And because there's so many of you out there, I think you have a really good chance of finding people who share some of the goals, some of your challenges, and some of your strategies, and who can add to your own writing abilities.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, this is something that this is now the second time we have run this particular MOOC, and I had almost forgotten what the experience was like after the first one. That initial wave of anxiety or that sense that you're not ready, and how almost immediately that that second wave emerges where people are starting to encourage each other and come in and kind of give you ideas, and it's such a nice kind of atmosphere to enter into, especially considering the fact that you know, that we're so geographically spread out all over the place. The important thing to remember is that a MOOC experience should not be a high anxiety experience at all. In fact, it in some ways is a low threshold, kind of safe space to practice these kinds of skills and activities, and to work on you know, kind of interacting with others. So Cindy's advice about, you know, sticking with it, seeing if it fits. If not, you know, no harm, no foul. Come back later, or stick with it. Who knows? It's kind of endemic to the genre of the MOOC, I think, and so that kind of that's a nice feature, which I can't say is the same if I'm teaching actual students in a physical classroom. They kind of need to stick around unless they withdraw.
We have two new teachers who have joined. They're not new to the MOOC, but they've just joined, Chad Iwerts and Kay Halasek. Kay, why don't you introduce yourself first, and then unmute yourself, and then introduce yourself, and Chad, the same for you.
Okay, thanks, Cindy. I apologize, everyone. I had to add a plug-in on my computer, and it took a little bit of time to figure out exactly what the problem was. I'm Kay Halasek. Like Scott and Ben and Susan, I'm an associate professor of English in the department at Ohio State. And I've introduced myself on a couple of the discussion forums. I'm a native Minnesotan, and if you can see behind me over here, I actually have two pennants from the Minnesota Twins. I'm a huge baseball fan, and so in my spare time, I spend a lot of time watching baseball and softball. But my primary role here, really, I think, in the MOOC is kind of as a pedagogy specialist and rhetorician and compositionist. When I think about what I bring to the MOOC, I really focus on those particular elements. My particular areas of sort of leadership in the MOOC are in what will be Unit 2, which is the unit that builds around the notions of rhetoric, and then also the research unit. So that's where my expertise is really coming in handy. Other faculty, as you probably have heard, or maybe you've heard, I wasn't privy to the first half hour of the conversation today, is more, their expertise is more in digital media and composition studies and rhetoric, and mine is really fully in composition studies, the teaching of writing, and then also in rhetoric and research.
Okay, Chad.
Okay, hi, I'm Chad Iwerts. I'm a PhD student at The Ohio State University, along with Caitlin and Mike. And my primary interests are also in rhetoric and composition and literacy. And within that, I tend to focus in on intersections of disability studies, technology, pedagogy, what that all looks like in the classroom, kind of that area. I've already met a couple of people in the forums who have similar interests, so shout out to you guys if you're watching. If not, maybe you'll see this later. But yeah, I think my role mainly with the MOOC is I'm here for support pretty much wherever it needs to be. I'm an extra set of eyes to answer questions for anyone on the discussion forums. I've been helping with some content management, putting together specifically Unit 3, so working on that. Yeah, but really I'm the student, the PhD student, so I'm here to help out wherever you guys need me to. So.
One of the things we like to think about in the MOOC is that every single participant in this MOOC adds their own valuable perspective to the mix, and that the course just wouldn't be the same course if any of you were missing. So we really appreciate it when we can call on different people from different perspectives with different abilities and specializations and interests when they pitch it on the table. It makes all of our lives more interesting. So we look forward to meeting each of you, and this introductory period is really one of the most interesting periods we have in the MOOC.
I might jump in and take on a question that we saw also appearing in some of the discussion forums, and that somebody also sent us an email about this question, and that was actually it starts with a clarification of some instructions, something that's showing up in a video that I'm in. You may have noticed I look a little bit different. I have a beard, I've shaved my head, but that's me that's doing that walkthrough video. So in that video, when we're talking about assignment 1, who I am as a writer with a cause, we say that there will be a submission window and that you should submit to that submission window. That is a slight little change that we've made. What we're asking you to do with assignment 1 is to simply share that assignment. There's a discussion forum that's just for sharing that assignment, and we're asking you to simply do that. And that there is no separate submission window for you to submit the assignment. So don't worry about that with assignment 1. We apologize. That was something that was in a previous video that we forgot to delete. But that does give us a great opportunity to introduce the Writers Exchange, what's coming with the next assignments down the road. The Writers Exchange is an anonymous peer review system that we've created to work with this MOOC. And it's going to give you an opportunity to provide feedback to each other in what we think is a really exciting environment that we worked really hard to design. When you start your second assignment, so the assignment 2, that assignment is actually going to ask you, it'll be the first time you actually do some peer review of each other's work. And it's in that assignment where this idea of the submission window is going to come in. It's going to be, you're going to have an opportunity to submit your assignment to the Writers Exchange, and then this mechanism that we have, 3 of the assignments of the other people in the class, and it's going to deliver them to you, and you're going to have the opportunity to provide helpful feedback to those writers. Going along with WEX is a text that we're going to ask you to read down the road. It's going to be called the WEX Training Guide. That's going to teach you everything you need to know about WEX, and it's actually going to take you through a practice module. The practice module is really important because it's also going to teach you how to provide this feedback. This is one of the key elements of WEX, we think, is giving you this opportunity to practice before you actually start responding to each other's work. So it's that practice module and then getting lots of practice throughout the class. We're going to be using WEX throughout the entire rhetorical composing class. You won't be just reviewing once, you're going to be reviewing multiple times with many different assignments. And what you'll find is that this is another opportunity, going back to the question that Professor Self was answering about figuring out where how prepared you are for the class and how your writing relates to the other people in the class. Because you're going to get the opportunity to read things that other people are writing. You're going to provide them feedback, and then you're also going to receive feedback. This is where the exchange in the title, the Writers Exchange, comes in, is that there's going to be this constant give and take of you providing feedback and receiving feedback, and then you're even going to have the opportunity to tell people when you think how you felt their feedback was helpful to you. You're going to get the opportunity to reflect on the feedback that you've received, and it's this really rich environment of peer review that we've created that I think is at the core of the class, and that I think that most students have said that they've really learned the most when they've had this opportunity to work in WEX.
I want to add a word about the first assignment that you're doing. Who am I as a writer with a cause? I want to encourage you to look at the level up challenges for this particular unit. The level up challenges are designed to provide you an additional dimension for your writing, an additional challenge, or maybe an opportunity to push your writing a little bit further. Sometimes it involves publishing something that you've written or something that you've done. So the first level up challenge would be to, after you publish, after you put your first assignment, who am I as a writer with a cause, onto the discussion forums, after you cut and paste it there, we invite you to go to the Digital Archive of Literacy Narratives and to submit your narrative, your literacy narrative, to the digital archives so it becomes part of a public record, and so that your story can inspire other writers and readers as they come across it in the digital archive. that is a public archive. So publishing your narrative there gives it increased reach, breadth, and scope, and also puts you in conversation not only with people in the MOOC, but with everybody else who might use that collection from all over the world.
Yeah, and just to add something about the level ups now, because there have been so many discussion forum posts about where are they, the answer is they're now live. So when you go to the Rhetorical Composing homepage, you'll see that on the navigation bar under content, we now have level up for distinction. And this is where we'll be posting all of the prompts for our level ups. Remember that in order to qualify for the Certificate of Completion with Distinction, you need to complete 4 of the 8 level ups. Whichever ones you choose are up to you and your own interests. Right now we have 2 available challenges, which, as Dr. Self mentioned, we have this Assignment 1 challenge, which is publishing to the DALN, and we also have a challenge for World Englishes. In both of these, you'll have the discussion, or the prompt is there, and you have to note that there are 2 parts to all level up activities. One, you actually complete the prompt. So in terms of the Assignment 1 level up, you actually have to compose your Assignment 1 and publish it to the DLN. But then you'll notice there's a subheading under the level up challenge that says how to complete your World Englishes level up activity. There's a link in there to a quiz, and basically this is how we'll be able to keep track that you have completed these level ups. It's just 3 simple questions. The first question asks, have you done the level up assignment? Click yes. And then the second question asks for at least 50 words, a 50-word reflection on what you learned in the process of completing that level up activity. And then the third question, if applicable, please include a link to wherever you posted your work. So that might be in the discussion forum. If you get a link from the DALN, you can include that. If you posted it on YouTube, but if that box is there, you do need to include a web address in order to get full credit for the assignment. The good news is, too, if something goes wrong, you can take this 100 times, so until you get it right, the formatting. And if you run into issues, please do email us at rhetoricalcomposing@gmail.com. That's my pitch.
And a good one.
Scott and Caitlin, if it's okay, I'd like to actually follow up a little bit on both on the WEX guide and what Caitlin just mentioned about reflections, because Scott was talking a little bit about our philosophy and the philosophy behind peer review, and the element that I find is most beneficial for me as a writer and that I anticipate will be extremely helpful to those of you who are taking rhetorical composing is this act of reflection. And this is in addition to our course. In the first MOOC that we offered in 2013, we didn't actually include the reflection portion of the WEX guide and the peer review system. And in our courses at Ohio State in subsequent semesters, we've actually developed this reflection module or portion of the WEX process of peer review. And Caitlin just mentioned this even with the level up activities. When we take time as writers to kind of view of the activity or the value of the peer review, and we begin to see our own writing, in the case of peer review, through the eyes of other writers, and if we step back maybe from our own personal investment and we begin to imagine how our readers engage our writing or any of our compositions, something like even the visual PSA, which is the third assignment that you'll complete in the course, we begin to see our work differently. And so you'll see a lot of opportunities for reflection in rhetorical composing. And I really encourage you to take that very, very seriously, because that's where you individually will begin to see and have the opportunity to articulate for yourselves what you see yourself, how you see yourself developing as a writer over time. And I imagine each of those reflection opportunities will give you also the occasion to think about revising your work. So as the course goes on, you'll complete the major assignments, and then at the end of the course, you'll be asked to select one of those if you choose to, you can revise one of them at the end of the course. And so the reflections themselves over time, I think, will give you be a kind of barometer for you, an opportunity to gauge yourself as a writer and how you've progressed over the course of even just the 10 weeks in rhetorical composing.
It never hurts, does it, Kay, just to sit back and think about what you've written, how it's affected other writers, how other writers have affected you. So that reflection just deepens, I think, the learning that happens in the MOOC and creates another opportunity for you to accomplish what you set out to accomplish.
I was just actually, I'm teaching a couple of other courses at Ohio State at the same time we're offering the MOOC, and in one of my undergraduate courses just the other day I reminded students that writing is, sometimes we conceive of it as a solitary act because we may be the only person sitting in front of a computer composing, but it's always and ultimately and at every level a collaborative activity. And I'm reminded of a colleague of ours, Andrea Lunsford, who always refers to the work of philosopher Hannah Arendt that says, for excellence, the presence of others, I may not have this quotation exactly right, but for excellence, the presence of others is required. And I see the MOOC as the sort of a manifestation of that. That with tens of thousands of others around us, and even with just 2 or 3, if our small community that develops in the MOOC is only a few people, a half a dozen, it's the presence of those others that really can help us benefit as writers, because as you say, Cindy, we have those people to engage in our conversations about writing.
I think that you can all see how excited we are about engaging in this for a second time. We enjoyed it so much the first time. We learned so much from it the first time. You may also be thinking, there's an expression that is used here. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's TMI, too much information. And I don't want everybody to think that that this is like a lecture and you have to remember all of the things that we're saying here. This is just an introduction to bits and pieces of the course. But you will remember as you move through it at a measured pace, you'll remember some of the words we used and some of the concepts that we introduced, so they won't seem unusual. You'll come across the level ups. You'll hear about reflection. You'll hear about collaboration. You'll hear about community. You'll learn lots more about WEX, but not all today, not all this first week. So that's just something to keep in mind as we express our particular things that make us most excited about the course.
The entire course, well, first of all, it's called Rhetorical Composing, and that's deliberate, because it's one thing to be able to string words together into some combination that makes sense grammatically or syntactically, but it's quite another thing to think about how that writing or any act of communication works its way out into the world around you. So from the assignment designs to the focus this time around on social causes and how you interact with them, to the structure of the MOOC itself, the discussion forums, the back channel activity in the social media outlets like Facebook and Google+, to the Writers Exchange platform itself, all of that is designed to kind of reinforce that idea that when we communicate, it's not in a vacuum, right? We talk to one another. We try to move people, their thoughts, their minds, their feelings, and that's a very complex set of skills to develop, but ultimately a set of skills that's worth developing. And so, in 10 weeks, I think you're going to make a lot of progress.
As you listen to this discussion that we post online, and maybe as you as Susan says, take it a little bit slower and more deliberately and listen to what we've been saying. You might want to jot down some questions for yourself or for one of us and ask them in the discussion forum. One of the things that we've noticed is that when you ask a question in the discussion forum, it's often best answered by fellow participants in the MOOC. We'll eventually get to those questions, but we like it when other participants help us answer questions or respond to the needs of other writers in productive and also in timely ways. So don't hesitate to ask questions in the fora. Don't hesitate to answer questions in the forums. Both activities are very valuable to us.
We're just about at our time limit, so we should probably wrap up. One last thing I'd like to say to you all, it's been a genuine pleasure reading all the conversations taking place on the forums right now. You all are really engaging with each other, and I think it's really going to lead to some good writing and some good work. So keep it up. We will be talking to you in the forums, and we will have another one of these office hour sessions very soon. So send in questions to rhetoricalcomposing@gmail.com, and we will do our best to answer them.
And we'll look forward to talking to you in future Google Hangouts. Now that you know what they look like, you might be better able to prepare for them, or you might want to go back and look at the first ones and go forward and look at the next ones too. We look forward to seeing you there.
And we're going to do our
Bye, everyone.
So we're going to do our best to solve those technical problems so that we start on time. We apologize again. Again, as Mike said, send us questions. We'd love to answer your questions. So we'll put that announcement out next week. We've got another one next week, and we'll see you then. Great.
Bye,
Thank you all.
everyone.
Bye.